Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for more dedicated legacy action. Today, at the request of a regular donor, we are once again dipping our toes into the wonderful world of POX. And today we are running Pit Rack POX. Yep, we got some absolute bangers in today's deck list. So we're playing the Rack. So we shrink our opponent's hand size and then they're going to get burned by the Rack every turn. We can fetch this off of Urza Saga, which feels like a match made in heaven right there. We also run Bottomless Pit. This is a 3-mana enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card at random. So what we're doing here is giving ourselves more things that are worth Dark Ritualing out. So we can Dark Ritual out our Lilianas, but we've also got a few Bottomless Pits in there as well. And this is just going to make sure our opponent's hand is not going to be going anywhere. Speaking of hand disruption, we're going really hard on it. We've got him to Tourach and Thoughtseize as well. So we are going to be starving our opponent of resources and then cutting them off of even more using Smallpox, which is obviously the title card of the deck. Alongside this, we've got some interesting stuff worth talking about. We've only got a couple of Sheoldred's Edicts in here. I would like some more removal, but I couldn't quite fit it in. I'm hoping that Liliana is going to be doing enough, like Liliana, Sheoldred's Edict, Smallpox, and then having the ability to constantly block with a Nether Spirit that can jump out, as well as having as a Saga construct. That's hopefully going to be enough for us. In terms of our Urza side, we've got some other targets that we're talking about. Obviously Pithing Needle. We need this because we're kind of weak against some Planeswalkers, so this will help in that front. We've got 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate because that's the format we live in. A 1-of Zuran Orb, which helps us sacrifice my sweet beloved Eumidian Hatchery. We can also sacrifice an Urza Saga with the 3rd trigger on the stack, so we get a little bit of life out of this each time we go around, which is quite nice. And Basilisk Collar. This is an unusual one, but I played a POX deck with Eumidian Hatchery a few weeks ago. And I had equipments in there. I think it was Shadow Spear I had in there. And I didn't really like it that much because if we're just getting like a bunch of 1/1 dorks a lot of the time, or Nether Spirit as this list can do, then just giving it like a little bit of power isn't really enough. But giving it Basilisk Collar allows it to trade with anything. Death Touch and Lifelink. So it's going to give us the life back to mitigate what's happening with Hatchery. And it's going to give us a Death Touch so that we can actually trade with anything we want in combat. And that's huge. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to see how it pans out today. We've got 1 Urborg because sometimes we're going to want our Urza Saga to tap for black. Sometimes we're going to want our Eumidian Hatchery to tap for black without hurting us. And that's what we've got there. And we've got 4 Wastelands, which we can hopefully recur at some point with the Crucible of Worlds, which is, unsurprisingly, my favourite Magic the Gathering card. So here it is. Sideboard-wise, we're not messing around. We have 4 Null Rods. We have 4 Leyline of the Void. We've got a couple of Toxic Deluge and a bunch more removal. So we're hoping to cover a lot of combo decks and control decks with our discard plan. And then if we need to kill creatures that are getting into play, we've got plans for that in the sideboard. And then the combo decks that can go really fast, we can hopefully deal with them using the Leyline and the Null Rod. So that's what we're playing today. I always enjoy playing POX, and I know all you people out there love seeing it. So let's get hatching a plan with our Eumidian Hatchery and make our opponent have a miserable time. Let's get started. If you are looking to buy some Magic cards, not only does 3for1 Trading have a wonderful online store linked in the description of this video, but they will also have booths at upcoming events. MagicCon Atlanta from the 26th to 28th of September, Eternal Weekend Pittsburgh from the 9th to the 12th of October, and Spiel 25 in Essen from the 23rd to the 26th of October. Whether you're looking to sell off cards you don't need or add more to your collection, 3for1 Trading has got you covered. Okay, we can do the whole Bottomless Pit thing if that's where we want to go with this hand. I didn't put Bottomless Pit in my deck to not just put it into play immediately, right? So this is going to be Urborg, Ritual, Pit on turn 1. So Bottomless Pit is a card that sees a reasonable amount of play in pre-modern, although a lot of black decks in pre-modern are kind of easing off of it now. But the Pit Rack deck definitely exists in that format. So we're seeing if we can bring a little bit of that joy and wonder to this Bottomless Pit. For legacy play, let's see how much we can mess our opponent up with this. So our opponent could just discard like the land they're relying on. Okay, so we're getting a 2-for-2 exchange here, which is what our deck wants to do. We want to just deplete resources and then win with what's left over. I don't particularly want to get Wastelanded, but I could probably live with that. So we could play a Wasteland so they can't fetch a Surveil land here, or we could just play this as a Saga and just begin the Saga game. So we've got access to a piece of removal, which is nice, and then we can just crank out some constructs and hopefully overrun our opponent that way. If our opponent's like a control-y deck, Urza Saga is very good, especially main deck against control decks as a general rule. This Brainstorm, our end of turn, is kind of interesting. This suggests more like a combo play pattern, or they have a 2-drop that is going to use up their mana next turn. They just want to get a little bit of selection going first. So we'll see what they drop, and then we can get a better idea of what sort of deck they're playing. They could be playing Omnitail right now. They've basically just shown us the cards that are in every blue deck so far. A Savannah. So now I'm thinking our opponent is Nadu. Alright, yep. That is Nadu adjacent, isn't it? So now are we supposed to Wasteland our opponent, or are we supposed to keep cranking with the Construct? I think we're actually supposed to Wasteland here. We're going to miss out on the Construct, unfortunately. But I think just hammering our opponent's resources is what we want to be doing. This can get us the rack, so this is going to get us a win condition that will steadily do its thing. And they seem to have missed on land there, which is quite nice. The POX lifestyle. Alright, let's add black mana. Let's go and get the rack. I think it should be the rack. There is an argument for playing other things out there. Right, let's get another Saga going. Let's cast this Liliana. So if they Thoughtseize this, sorry, if they Force of Will this, then they're going to be going down to 3 cards. Right, they're dazing. That's a little bit unfortunate for us, but again, our opponent's setting themselves quite far back on mana there. Just that island, we've seen it before. Right, the Saga's ticking up, so we're going to be able to get another one of these, perhaps. Or maybe we get something different, like we could get the Pithing Needle to stop this. I'm hoping that our Sheoldred's Edict stops them from being able to combo us next turn with something like an Illusionist. That is a Flooded Strands. They found a mana source. Getting a basic. I'm getting breakfast vibes here. That is an Illusionist. So they can equip the Shuko, and we can Sheoldred's Edict in response. Each opponent sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice. Okay. So now we're going to make a construct, and then we're going to go and get ourselves, I think it's the Pithing Needle, and we name Shuko. We probably could have done these the other way around, to be honest. Might have been a shrewder play. So we'll play out this Wasteland. This will let our opponent know that it's coming, but I think they have to just play into it anyway, for the most part. I guess they can hold a land until they're ready to pop off, but it's going to be hard to pop off when Shuko's not a thing they get to use. So you can just keep cards in hand to make it so that our rack never deals them damage, but they're still going to be taking beats from this construct. Narcomoeba. Okay, they're going down to 3 cards. I don't believe they have additional basics in their deck. A Smallpox. That is an interesting one, isn't it? Okay, we're just going to hold this Wasteland. If our opponent wants to get a Surveil land, then we can punish them for it. There is a Saga. We can Wasteland this before... Well, it already knows how to make mana, because it knows how to make black mana. But we don't want our opponent to have Urza Saga. That's okay, so now they're cracking their Windswept Teeth. But our opponent might have missed that it could have tapped for black, so it's definitely worth wasting there, just in case our opponent makes a mistake. We're not used to it tapping immediately when it comes into play. Need to wait for the trigger normally, so it's worth trying to get our opponent to make a mistake. Is this going to be a Nadu? It is a Nadu. Okay. And Nomads as well. Okay, we auto lose to this. Alright. Yep, that is awkward. So, I would like access to some removal spells, please. What do we not require? We probably don't need a Zuran Orb. Wastelands are pretty good, so I do want to keep some of this Crucible of Worlds stuff going on. Do we need to be, like, jumping ahead with a Dark Ritual? Is that something we actually need to be doing? Like, having the turn 1 him Thoughtseize combo is pretty nice. And powering out these Lilianas is pretty good too. Now, we could take out the Bottomless Pit, but you lovely people did come here to see the pit. We could probably take out one of the racks. Maybe we'll trim a pit. Pretty clean. Let's try that. So we still want the Graveyard Hate, and the Spellbomb is the Graveyard Hate we want. They're probably going to ease off of one of their combos, though. Like they're probably going to lean more into the Nadu, which feels very good into us for the most part. Yes, I'll keep this Wasteland Crucible of Worlds hand. That is how I like to play Magic the Gathering. So we got Thoughtseize on 1. Which is not a bad way to start things off. We can also know what we're naming with the Pithing Needle in theory. Okay, so the scariest thing that our opponent has here is Tamiyo. I'm just going to take Tamiyo. That card is not okay. Let's pass it over. So they might just lead off on a Hedge Maze, which we can Wasteland if we wish. Alright, there is the Hedge Maze. This is our opponent's blue mana. Is it worth cutting them off of blue mana entirely? They left a card on top, so that might be another blue source. Okay, let's Thoughtseize them again. 2 Nomads and Core, a Brainstorm, Cavern of Souls. I'm going to take the Brainstorm here. And then we're just going to go after their Hedge Maze, I think. At some point, we're going to start rebuying these Wastelands, and our opponent's going to have a really horrible time. A Basic Plains. You got it, boss. I'm going to play out this Urza Saga. Play this Pithing Needle. I'm going to name Nomads. So that shuts off 2 of the cards in their hand. Next turn, we can play the Crucible, or we can make a guy and just start getting some damage in. And then the turn after we play the Crucible, when we get immediate value from it. Wouldn't mind a Wasteland this turn, but we'll see. An Urborg. I think we just play the Swamp here. And we make the Construct this turn cycle, because then we get to attack with it more. Alright, so they're going to play out their Cavern. Presumably named Wizard with it, because that's Nardu. And oh, they found an island. Good for you, opponent. So they do have a source of Plowshares. They can use it on our Construct if they wish. Am I making a token here? I don't think I am. I think we're just making the mana. What am I going to get here? I think it should be the Spellbomb. Like, it's a redraw if we need it later on. Let's play the Crucible. Opponent has one mystery card. It could be a Daze, but it was not. Let's play this Wasteland. Take out their Saga. This is going to happen to you every turn, opponent. You get a 1-1. That's nice for you, I guess. We have a 4-4. There is a Nomads. This can chump block. Sure, getting the 1 damage makes sense if you're not blocking with this. What are we playing here? I think it's probably the Saga. And we just keep sending. And we're just going to keep making constructs. Right, I found a Ponder. That's certainly a step in the right direction for them. But they are under the gun quite a bit here. They probably have 2-ish prismatic endings that can deal with the needle and just switch on the Nomads. Smallpox is not spectacular right now, but we are at least insulated against the Cephalid Illusionist combo using this Spellbomb. But we're going to be able to pull out loads of stuff from our deck here, because we're just going to keep playing our Sagas. We're not going to lose the fair Saga game. A hymn to Tourach, you say? I do like a hymn to Tourach. Do I like it more than making a construct? It does sound quite nice, doesn't it? Right, let's attack first and see what they want to do about this. Alright, there goes the plow. And then we can fire in with a hymn, or take half of our opponent's hand. Where they lose Force of Will and Force of Negation. So we know the cards in their hand. Alright, we are just going to Smallpox here. Actually going to sacrifice the Urborg here. I want our opponent to have to fetch with this. So we're going to sacrifice the Urborg. Right, they didn't fetch. Not surprised, but just in case they left it up, I didn't want them to have the option of tapping it for black mana. So now our Rack is going to do some work. More Smallpoxes will be great. Still got this Cavern that we know about. I wonder if they play out another Nomads to insulate against Smallpoxes a bit. And also can turn sideways. But again, they're not going to win the fair beatdown plan. Alright, we'll take one. No deploying of the other guy. Go and get the Rack. And I will deploy this as a Saga. We don't have black mana to draw a card off of this Nihil Spellbomb. If that becomes a thing that we need to be doing. But the Rack is dealing damage to our opponent. A Brainstorm. So we can just play out lots of Sagas and just pull out everything from our deck that we can get. So we've got another Spellbomb, we've got another Rack, and we've got a Basilisk Collar. So we can just pull all of those out quite quick while making constructs. We don't care if we don't get full value out of a Saga, because it's just going to run its course and then give us some value. The joys of having Crucible of Worlds in play. Everything is better with this card. We don't know how they've brainstormed here, so these cards might not be in their hand anymore. So do I want to just race towards getting more bits and pieces? Or do I want to get this hatchery ticking up? I think I'm going to get the hatchery ticking up. Alright, let's send in the construct. It's going to be large. Make a construct that's going to make it one bigger. Alright, our opponent's going to 4. They're not taking any damage from the Rack this turn. So 2 cards they take 1, 1 card they take 2, 0 cards they take 3. So far this has been good for 1 damage. Okay. Our Ponder this turn means our opponent can't combo us out this turn unless they're running Lotus Petals. Because they need to have an answer for our Pithing Needle and the Illusionist. And then they also need to get through this Spellbomb. So it's tough. They need to play some sort of threat here. Whatever they... Well, not so much a threat. They need to play a blocker. Alright, they're scooping it up. Alright. We won with the Rack in play. I'll take it. I like how we sideboarded here. We're just going super heavy on the removal. Let's just do that again. I really want a second land for this hand. I like what I'm seeing here, but I think we just have to be responsible and mulligan here. Yes, this one is better for us. I think the pit has to go. I'm sorry, everyone. Wasteland is very good in this matchup. We can deal with their Urza Sagas and their shaky mana base. Having removal spells is also very nice. Counter Souls naming Wizard. Is this going to be a Tameo? A Ghost Vacuum? Sure. Am I willing to waste this? I think so. Only because we have a second Wasteland. So they should hoover this up now. So the Crucible not looking so good. They missed the activation on that. They should have had our Wasteland. They're more likely to fetch it on basic if we've already fired off a Wasteland, but maybe they'll conclude that we fired it off there because we have a second Wasteland. Alright, there is a Tundra. It's a Nomads, okay. I believe we are still on Team Wasteland here. So they might have fetched the non-basic because they had to, or they might have fetched the non-basic because they were able to, if that makes sense. So they might have had enough lands in hand that didn't matter, or they didn't have any lands, they had to fetch the non-basic. Okay. I would like to Thoughtseize my opponent, please. What we got here? Prismatic Ending. Another one of those. Interesting. At some point, Nadu is going to happen, right? That is a thing that we have to be worried about. But having this Prismatic Ending not be part of the game means our Pithing Needle is way more likely to stick and be good. Alright, I'm going to go for the Prismatic Ending here. I don't really want to burn Fatal Pushes on Nomads if I can avoid it. Okay. We found a land, that's quite nice. This, I could name Flooded Strand. But I think the sensible thing is to name Nomads. But let it be known that there was a big part of me that wanted to name Flooded Strand. Like, we could name the Ghost Vacuum, but we only really care about that when it comes down to Crucible of Worlds, which is a one-of, and Nether Traitor, Nether Spirit, I can't remember which one it is. The Nether guy is a one-of as well. So that's 2 cards in our whole deck that care about this Ghost Vacuum. So I don't think it's worth burning a Pithing Needle on that. Land, land, land. Not a land. Okay. We'll pass. And we don't have a quick clock on this game. Technically losing this game right now. But at some point, we'll find a land and everything will become very, very good. Here is a Liliana. You can lose a creature. And then we can just start ticking up the Liliana whilst pumping out constructs. Alright, they're going to clean up. That's not really where they want to be. Nether Spirit. I'm going to get rid of this Deluge. At least our opponent doesn't have to go to discard on their turn anymore. Flooded Strand. Oh, we could have named it with a Pithing Needle. Basic Island, probably a Ponder of some description. It's a Tamiyo. That card is good. It's correct to make the construct now, and then we can attack with this. We can also see what we draw. A Swamp. 5 cards in our opponent's hand. We know not 4 of them, we know 3 of them. So we could have Forcible Blue card here. I'm just going to make another construct. We want to get this game over and done with. What do we want to get here? Is it the Rack? I think it's the Rack. I play this one out. I want to plus this, and I'm going to get rid of a Nether Spirit. They can obviously take it with a Ghost Vacuum, but I think the other cards in our hand are just better. Okay, and Nadu's gone. Let's see if they block with their Tamiyo. I suspect they will not. And then we can push this. Alright. Sorted. Maybe the Rack can do some more damage. It's not been doing a lot so far. Maybe 3 is too many. But we've got 2-turn clock. Alright, they've got a Saga. That can churn out a little bit of value. So they play a creature here. They played a Shuko. Sure. This means they're going to be taking damage from the Rack next turn, which is all we really care about. We just want to rack people up good. Get rid of the Nether Traitor, Nether Spirit, sorry. That's all good. Him to Tourach. It'd be rude not to at the end of the day, wouldn't it? I'm going to plus this, and I'm going to discard the Sheoldred's Edict, because we might struggle to get Revolt here. Okay. The Rack is going to hit our opponent for 3 damages. If the opponent plays the card that they draw this turn, the Rack will kill them. This will be the thing that deals the final points of damage if that's what happens. That's not true. We're going to kill them with constructs. But yeah, we managed to win a match with the Rack. Excellent. Let's go to round number 2. Yeah, these are some Magic the Gathering cards that I enjoy. I'll keep this. I'd probably play the Hatchery out 1 and just start ticking it up straight away. What else is there to enjoy in life other than playing Eumidian Hatchery and casting a Thoughtseize off on turn 1? That is chef's kiss perfection of Magic the Gathering right there. Love this card so much. What do we got here? Brainstorm, Ponder, Force of Will, Reanimate. I am going to remove this Brainstorm. I want to keep the knowledge of what my opponent has in their hand. I don't want them to be able to hide cards. If they want to spend 2 cards to answer one of my cards in the Hymn to Tourach, that suits me just fine. Probably going to see the C into Ponder, I would imagine. We should be pretty good in this matchup, I would imagine, because we've got lots of graveyard hate. We've got the 4 Leylines, which aren't amazing against Reanimator, but they do enough whilst the rest of our tools punish our opponent to the point where they don't get to play the game anymore. It's more of like a stopgap measure. Eventually they'll find the Brazen Borrower, but by then we should have like set up our Nihil Spellbombs and things. Alright. I would like my opponent to be Hymn to Tourach here. This is going to cost you 2 cards. Would you like it to be a blue card and a Force of Will, or 2 random cards? The choice is yours, opponent. Force of Will, pitching the borrower. Okay. Are we just going to get Entomb Reanimated on? Can beat that if our Smallpox resolves. Alright, so they didn't play the land that we knew about because this comes in tap, so that makes sense. So they have either a 2 mana play or 2 1-mana plays this turn. Is it an Entomb? It is an Entomb, of course it is. So if they get an Atraxa and they don't hit a counterspell, then we're good. If they only hit something like a Daze, then we're fine because the Smallpox will strip away their guy and leave us in a pretty good spot. But we have almost perfect information. There is 1 mystery card over there, and our opponent is going to show us whatever they get off of the Atraxa. Oh, they got an Archon of Cruelty. Fine. Okay, I'm going to discard this Swamp. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. So hopefully this Smallpox just works here. I will play out... If I play out this Saga, next turn we can start making guys. That seems pretty good. It's time to make some friends. I got 2 mystery cards, Force of Will blue card. It was not. One time it wasn't. Okay. I think we get rid of the Lily here and just do Urza Saga things. And just keep the guaranteed land. And I'll sacrifice this and make 3 powers worth of guys just for playing the game, which is a nice place to be. And then we're going to be pretty close to making it so our opponent isn't going to be able to use a Reanimate in the near future. Tamiyo is obviously a phenomenal Magic the Gathering card. Not super happy about seeing that. It's also decidedly good at stopping our guys. But I think the plan for us is to get our opponent low enough so the card Reanimate doesn't work anymore. Which we can do next turn. This Tamiyo is definitely irritating though. But we can get a Pithing Needle and do the backside. Alright, she's not attacking. Interesting. Also not playing out this Undercity Sewers is interesting. Oh, no, sorry, that's what they discarded to the Smallpox. Apologies. A Zuran Orb. One of my favourite Magic cards as well. Just all the bangers in this deck. It does make me happy. So, you have 3 cards in hand. We should be getting the Nihil Spellbomb. That's how we lose this game. So let's not lose the game. Let's play the Zuran Orb. That's going to make my guy a 4/4. Alright. Scooped to Zuran Orb. That's worth a screenshot, isn't it? Let's go to the sideboard. So, we can mitigate their graveyard plan if we want to with these. We can mitigate their fair creature plan with these things. What does not seem the greatest here? We could just go again with the whole Dark Ritual plan and just slow the game down a little bit. Like, we didn't need to completely strip everything out of the game, which means we're probably trimming a Bottomless Pit. Maybe we just get rid of 2 copies of the Rack. Do we need a Zuran Orb? This doesn't really feel like a Zuran Orb matchup, does it? And that gives us 1 more cut. If you want to fit all of these in. Do we need to fit all of these in? Probably not all of these Fatal Pushes. We're pretty bad at triggering Revolt. But this does impact a Tamiyo. We have Wasteland and Saga that can both trigger Revolt. I don't particularly like Leyline in this matchup. But I think it's enough to get us over the hump of the first couple of turns. Because the way we lose this game is if our opponent reanimates something really big and protects with counter spells on like turn 2, then we're just cooked. So we need to say, no, you can't do that. And then eventually we get our Spellbomb and then we don't care about Brazen Borrower shenanigans. Wow, this hand makes me happy. I love the old Thoughtseize into him to Tourach. Proper magic. Okay, so our opponent didn't do anything on turn 1. How much do we have to respect what our opponent can have here? If we Thoughtseize, I think the best play is still the Thoughtseize. There is an argument to try and deal with a Spellbomb, but I think we should be Thoughtseizing here. Okay, it's a Brainstorm, so they're going to hide cards. So they could hide Entomb and Reanimate, or they could hide one of the pieces. So we're going to have to try and be sneaky here with what we take and try and work out what our opponents put on top to save. Murktide Regent, Ponder, Ponder. Okay, I think the obvious choice here is the Ponder. Is it the Ponder or is it the Murktide? And we just let our opponents spin their wheels for a little bit. We don't know what's on top of their library. So Murktide is something that if they just have a Murktide and counterspell our Sheoldred's Edict, it becomes really annoying. I'm going to take out the Murktide. That was a really close call though. If it was one Ponder or a Murktide, then I think it would just be the Ponder. Yeah, so here is the sort of thing that our opponent can do. So they've gone for a Thoughtseize. They can take out something here. This probably incentivizes them to Wasteland our Hatchery, since we know that they can't stop us hymning them. Yeah. So we get pressure on board. It's not nothing. We know our opponent's hand, so we know that we can drop this Nihil Spellbomb without it being spelled. So it's going to cut off the graveyard plan for our opponents. And we've already seen one Murktide Regent, so now we don't have to play this horrible sub-game of, do I hold this for Reanimator plan? Do I hold it to... Do I pop it to stop Murktide Regent happening? Which is a really common play pattern, which is one of the reasons this deck is so toxic, the Blue-Black Reanimator, because you can have the tool, but you need to know exactly how you're supposed to use it. And you don't necessarily know what the top 4 cards of your opponent's library are, so you don't necessarily know what is the correct way to use it, and you can just lose the game from popping it or not popping it. I don't really want to Smallpox on this board. So I think cracking hatcheries early with Wasteland is actually one of the better ways of playing against them, because if you just let them stack up the counters, it becomes a problem. Alright, here is one of the ponders. And we're getting Thoughtseized. Sure. What does whatever they take tell us about their hand? So they've got one mystery card. If it's a creature, they're probably going to go for one of the creature removals. I don't really know why they would go for the Pithing Needle unless their play is Tamiyo. But we can answer Tamiyo with our other pieces. Alright, Smallpox. That sucks all the air out of the room. I understand taking that one. So now we are in a situation of, are we playing around Murktide or not? Which is not great for us. I think because we have the Sheoldred's Edict, we're just going to hold this up to deal with Reanimator spells. Right, there is a Wasteland. That's kind of spooky. Okay. I guess we're just going to keep attacking with an insect. Our free insect. I could name this with my Pithing Needle, or I could name the backside of Tamiyo, but I'd rather they flip a Tamiyo, then we name it, because otherwise they just keep it on the front side and just have a Howling Mine instead, and that's a problem. They found the Murktide. This is the problem. So we can draw a land. They're also going to cast this Ponder. They could have cast the Ponder first and got a bigger Murktide. Curious why they did. Okay, they could have cast this first and got a bigger Murktide. So now they're going to take our removal spell. So a lot of these builds will only have 2 Murktides. Unfortunately, we are just having a rough time of it. What is the plan here? I will block this turn. They should Ponder first. Let's get more information about how the turn is going to progress based on the resources they have available. There is the Tamiyo. That's obviously pretty scary as well. 1 card left in our opponent's hand. Okay, so we can take the remaining card of our opponent's hand. Doesn't feel incredible. But I also think we don't have much of a choice. I think that's probably what we have to do here. Try and get them empty. And try and draw one of the extra removal spells we boarded in. So our opponent's just drawing 2 cards a turn here. We can't beat Tamiyo. Like, it's a horrible card for us to play against. And it should just beat us pretty handily. If they flip the Tamiyo, they know we have a Pithing Needle. So they shouldn't be flipping the Tamiyo. They should wait till our turn to crack this clue. Duress. Okay, they can take out our Pithing Needle. That's pretty spooky. And Urza's Saga. Are we playing this out, or are we drawing a card? So if we pop this in our opponent's turn, this is going to be lethal. It's going to be lethal the turn after anyway. I think we just play this. It's not very exciting. Not really what I want to be doing, to be honest. But a lot of this game comes down to the fact that our opponent wastelanded our Eumidian Hatchery early doors, and that was a very good play. Have you got another Murktide? Are you running 3 Murktides in your list? Well, sure. Okay, well that felt horrible. So the Leyline does check the Murktide for a while. Do we want an extra Fatal Push just to kill Tamiyos? I think we're fine with the tools we have, to be honest. I think we will just resubmit and be on the play, and hopefully it goes a little bit better for us. Like, our opponent did have a pretty good sequence, but like I said, they did actually play very well. Wasteland in the Hatchery early, so we didn't get all the extra value off it, was huge, and definitely turned that game. So I think our opponent did the right things with the resources they had. And when we took the Murktide, and we were playing around their graveyard plan, then we got kind of bodied by the next Murktide. Okay, I can keep this. We start with a Leyline, so we don't have to worry about Murktide for a while. We don't have to worry about reanimation plans for a while. They probably, if they have 3 Murktides, they probably don't have any Barragoyts at all in their list. This can kill either side of Tamiyo as long as it stays the side. So if we go creature and they flip it, that feels bad. I've seen people running Sudden Edict a bit more just to deal with Tamiyo so they can't brainstorm a response. So maybe that's an interesting thing to look at. But then if they've already got the Tamiyo and you draw the Sudden Edict, it's bad. Whereas Sheoldred's Edict can answer the backside of a town when you're digging for an answer. Maybe we can do some cool Nether Spirit things. I will play out a hatchery on one and just start ticking it up. At some point it will turn into guys. Marsh flats, okay. I guess we just start cranking out Saga constructs. If our opponent plays something this turn, we can try and Sheoldred's Edict it. This is probably going to be a Surveil land, which we can pick up with a Wasteland if that's our want at a later turn. Underground Sea, we could see something like a Doubthy Voidwalker come down here. Just to ponder, that's fine by me. And we're just going to crank out the constructs. I'm going to play a Swamp next, I think. We don't need to be taking lots of damage from things. Sure, you can take my Sheoldred's Edict. You're probably not taking my Nether Spirit because it just jumps right back again. This also tells our opponent that this is the only creature in our deck, which may be useful information for them. At some point, we can pop our own hatchery. I think we're just going to get the construct value here. We will still get a Nihil Spellbomb because our opponent has access to Brazen Borrow in their decks. They could bounce this Leyline out of play at some point. So just having the graveyard covered 2 ways over is a good place to be. We've seen that their Reanimator threats and their Murktide Regents both rely on the graveyard, so this Leyline is doing better than it does against some builds of that deck. I'm just going to be a Barrow Goyf. You got it. 4 cards in our opponent's hand. It's going to get bigger because we're about to put a different type in the graveyard. A Sheoldred's Edict, you say? I will float a mana from my Saga. I will get a Nihil Spellbomb. I will deploy a Wasteland, I think. I think it's the Wasteland. Actually, no, I think it's a Hatchery, actually. No, it's the Wasteland. And then we cast this Liliana around a daze. If this doesn't work, we can still kill this Barragoyf using our own Nihil Spellbomb. Force of Will. Sure. I guess we hold back. If they attack, we can use the Spellbomb on ourselves and wipe our own graveyard, including the Spellbomb, because the cost is to sacrifice this. And then this Barragoyf will die. Storm straight into the Void. Unfortunately, it's Leyline rather than Chalice. That would be better for us if we could just stop them having a Brainstorm altogether, but it's not going to fuel the Barragoyf, which is some strand. Our opponent's got quite a bit of mana over there. I will block here. And then at end step, we can Nihil Spellbomb. A Doubthy Voidwalker. Okay, I will target myself here. We don't have the black mana for this, unfortunately. We could have played out the Hatchery and had the black mana for it. That would have been a tighter play. So this will kill their Barragoyf. There it goes. I have a Doubthy Voidwalker. We have an answer for this. We also have a Thoughtseize. Alright, let's Thoughtseize our opponent. What is your last card in hand? Is it a banger? Not really a banger. Is there any use in having this Wasteland? I don't think so. I'm going to play the Hatchery out and use this to Sheoldred's Edict my opponent. This way we can pop our own Hatchery whenever we want. If we just want to get 5 power in play, we can do that. It costs us 2 lands, so I would kind of prefer to have this Nether Spirit in play first. Probably pop out our opponent's exile so we can keep track of what they've gone through because their graveyard is not an important zone. Okay, so now we can go 1, 2, 3. We'll have a 3 mana 2/2. It's not worth counterspell an opponent, so what are you doing? I think our opponent has a counterspell there. And I think it's a daze. Actually, no, if it's a daze, they just pick it up. Yeah, they're picking it up. No, I won't prevent that. I'll keep this card in hand so our opponent might Thoughtseize us. We're just going to get our Nether Spirit back anyway. We're going to make 6 power this turn. And then we're still going to have 3 mana to cast whatever spells we want. Mulled over a Force of Will. Right, it's time to cash in the Hatchery. A beautiful spread of insects. Let's get our little Nether Spirit back. Let's go attacks. Yeah, so we missed a card draw this game via the Nihil Spellbomb. Probably the only real mistake I can see that we've made so far in this game. Alright, we got the match. Nether Spirit on a winning game screen in 2025. What more could you ask for? We're 2-0, let's go to round 3. 1 land, but it does cast a Dark Ritual. I do like Dark Ritualing things up. This feels like it could go pretty wrong for us. We have 2 draw sets to find land, 26 lands out of 53. Here's a 50-50 shot, basically. Sorry, 25 lands, so it's slightly worse than 50-50. I think we should be disciplined and mulligan here. Yeah, kind of rewarded, I guess. Zuran Orb, you can go away. We don't need you for now. Or possibly at all. I don't know. We'll see. Volcanic Island. We're doing some Delverin? We're doing some Delverin. Okay. Delver plus Bauble. So we've got some options available to us. The one I like best right now is just to Wasteland our opponent. Now, Wasteland when your opponent has a threat out isn't always the best thing to be doing. But what else is our hand doing in this situation? We can just set ourselves up to fail via a Wasteland at some point. Or we could maybe stop our opponent from being able to play the game. I think the upside of our opponent missing a land here is huge. And even if they just play out a land here, at least they're not double spelling, they're not playing other stuff. Oh wow, have we got them? No, just a second main phase hipster. Although it is a Wasteland. So Daze is off the table. Are you going to Force of Will on a Nihil Spellbomb? No. Okay, we're in a reasonable spot. We're going to have to bait this Wasteland out at some point, but I think we can do that. Do you have a land? They don't have a land. Okay, my call was absolutely spot on. Let's play this out. I'm going to Dark Ritual. You interested in this? Let's have a creature that you never ever want to counterspell. It's so bad, you don't want to counterspell it. I hope they do counterspell it though. They get the Surveil, so it's not like no reason for counterspelling there. So we played out the Urborg in the hopes our opponent Wastelands it. Our opponent is not playing ball. That is unfortunate for us. Sheoldred's Edict. Do I take away this creature? It's probably always hitting that creature anyway. So let's just fire away. That's the thing with Edict's effects. They're always going to hit the smallest guy. Alright, I don't think we need to pop the Nihil Spellbomb yet. We're still doing stuff. If I play out this Urza Saga, our opponent will tag it with this Wasteland. They've been disciplined enough. So let's play out now. They should hit it with this ability on the stack. Let's see if they do. This will give us black mana off of the... Okay, so we can do this for black. We're going to draw a card here. Smallpox. You're not going to like that when the time comes, are you, opponent? Alright. Sometimes the only way out is right through, and our opponent was showing us that they weren't going to burn it on an Urborg, so we needed to get it out of the way so we could get more things with our Nihil Spellbomb to keep them further away from any sort of delirium or ability to pay for Murktide Regents. Right, now we're on to the discarding stage of the game, which is nice for us, I guess. So we have one land that we can happily pitch to Smallpox here. So we have back-to-back Smallpoxes for whatever our opponent wants to throw at us. And we're just beating them down with a Nether Spirit. This is another card to pitch to Smallpox. I don't think our opponent's getting out of this one, really. Can't remove our creature without it coming back anyway. Alright, what are they going to discard this time? Corey Steelcutter, yeah. I think at this point we can play out another land. We're kind of flooding out a little bit. But our opponent doesn't have any resources to use. Well, they have resources, they just physically can't use them. This is very unlikely they've missed this many times. I will play out another swamp. This is gaming at its very finest. Our opponent doing nothing and us just turning the worst guy you've ever seen sideways again and again. Him to Tourach. Like, I don't even think we fire it off. I think we wait for our opponent to do something and then try and soften up their hand because they're probably going to have counter spells. I think this is too little too late. There is a Ponder. So we fire in a him and then we just go Smallpox and take out their land after we've attacked. Alternatively, we don't even have to do that. We could just send in the Nether Spirit and just keep sending it in. I like the him here. Corey Steelcutter and a Brainstorm. So if we hit once more with this, then our Smallpoxes are lethal. That is a Tamiyo. You got it. Are you going to Brainstorm? We made them discard one of the Brainstorms, so they might not be able to just fire in a Tamiyo and flip it. They do have the Brainstorm. Okay. So maybe we could end up getting punished here. Because they can go and get back whatever they want next turn with this Tamiyo. But that's just going to be like, what, Daze, Ponder, Brainstorm. I think we stay the course here. Well, like, we could have taken our opponent's land out. I think just removing a creature and making sure we can continue cracking in for our damages is a-okay. Let's attack them for 1. Play out the rack. So you've got to be careful with the amount of cards you have in hand now. So if they play a land and a spell, then our Smallpox is going to be very lethal here. A Corey Steelcutter. You've got it. Have you got a Bauble? They do have a Bauble. This is probably just going to be a blocking Steelcutter. We are in a situation where the Rack might be dealing the final points of damage in this game, which is all we ever wanted. Him to Tourach is pretty baller here. Let's go. Okay, let's cast a Smallpox. This is so beautiful. You absolutely love to see it. Caught between a Rack and a hard place. Like, if they've got a Force of Will and pitch here, then they just die to the Rack. If they let this hit them, they also die to the Rack. What I don't know is there's another Smallpox coming. So they're going to take 2 damage from the Rack, but I'm going to Smallpox them again. Just really show them that they got nothing going on. And then the Rack deals the final point of damage. Perfect. No notes. Okay. I would like some removal spells. I don't particularly want Toxic Deluge here. It's quite expensive against the Day's Wasteland deck, and it's an additional cost to pay, so it feels a little bit sketchy. I think we should probably be going down on the Racks. Maybe I've been playing them more than I need to. Is this a Zuran Orb matchup? Being able to make a bunch of guys is kind of important in a matchup like this. We probably have to get rid of some of the top end. I'm sorry, Bottomless Pit. Crucible of Worlds. I'm very reluctant to get rid of this. Maybe we're just trimming on Dark Rituals again. Just playing a slightly fairer game. They're a bit better than they were in the other matchups because our opponent is a much more dedicated tempo strategy. Okay, I like the Thoughtseize. We have removal spells. Smallpox is always really annoying when you've got a Smallpox in hand, but then there's also a 3-drop. You're like, well, these aren't the best of friends. That's what the Dark Rituals are there for. But, you know, it is what it is. And there's a Mishra's Bauble. So we have some options here. We can Thoughtseize our opponent, see what they're working with, or we can Fatal Push and just get their channeler out. A Smallpox. I think just paving the way for more Smallpoxes is probably the best thing to do here. Days, Force of Will, Murktide Regent, Tamiyo. Tamiyo is not great for us. Okay, I think we take the Tamiyo. I don't want it in the format, so I don't want it in my opponent's hand. That's a sensible way of choosing your Thoughtseize targets, right? This is going to give them Delirium, but I think that's fine. A Bauble. I would imagine they would probably be able to get it this turn anyway. Or not. And there is the Wasteland that we knew about. Okay. Okay, I will play this out. I will deploy a Fatal Push on this creature. We want our opponent to fight on our turn in case there's any Corey Steel Cutter nonsense. Am I playing out a Pithing Needle? If I play out a Pithing Needle, our opponent might daze it. Which is honestly fine. Oh, I didn't really want this to resolve. I think it's just Tamiyo, Seasoned Scholar. Just do the backside of Tamiyo now. That way, if we Smallpox and they flip their Tamiyo, we don't care. So we Smallpox next turn. We don't expect it to resolve. They Force of Will it. We have the ability to play around Days. Turn after, we can then play Liliana and take out the Murktide. So we're going to take 1 hit from the Murktide. And hopefully that's going to be okay. So it's not going to be the biggest Murktide. It's what, 4/4? They've only got 1 thing in there. It's kind of a very medium looking Murktide. Medium tide region it is. Okay, we can take a hit from this, no problem. So I play the Hatchery. I think I'm okay taking the damage off this. So this spell is not going to resolve. Force of Will, pitching the Days. So they have 1 mystery card in hand. So next turn we can choose if we play the Liliana around a Days or if we play the Smallpox. I think I'm inclined to play the Liliana. The upside is just very high. Now, our opponent could flash in a Brazen Borrower, and that could eat it instead, but the same thing happens with Smallpox. And before we start sacking lands to our Smallpox, we want to try and play around Days with our more expensive spells. Alright, you can hit me for 4. Put me to 10. We've also got this Eumidian Hatchery that at some point is going to give us some chump blockers. Alright, a Dragon's Rage Channeler is somewhat irritating here. But I think we can Liliana minus. Like, the difference between a 3/3 and a 4/4 isn't enormous. Okay, they're just giving us the Hatchery right away. Does that mean they have a Daze? It might mean they have a Daze. I don't think we get to play around it, though. Didn't have a Daze. Okay, this is good news for us. Get out of here. So they probably sack the Channeler, I think. Because Murktide can obviously do more damage. It can also grow if they have additional Murktides. We can save our Liliana and then bank up some removal for later on. I think wherever this goes, we're blocking here. Like, we're about to Smallpox anyway. Do you have a follow-up creature, or we just sat on some spells over there? It's a follow-up creature, and they're brainstorming again. Okay, I get it. You've got some resources. So, we want to draw a Nihil Spellbomb, ideally. They played the land out. That means they're just going to be getting a Surveil land here. The Rack. I don't hate it. The problem is, we have so many things we want to do here. Because if we Smallpox, and we get rid of the other Smallpox, how are we dealing with one of these? We do have a lot of removal that we brought into our deck. This is really tough. We're definitely casting a Smallpox. I don't know if we're discarding the Rack or the Smallpox. I think it should be the Rack. As annoying as that is. That's kind of our only win condition left in our deck, right? Maybe we have to discard the Smallpox and just get the Rack ticking. We can force them to attack the Liliana. Okay, let's get rid of the Smallpox. We also don't want to be sacrificing another land to our Smallpox. Then we play out the Rack. Enjoy. And then we will plus Liliana just to get more loyalty on it. So the Murktide probably comes here. Although if they have a Murktide on top of their library, 1, 2, 3. They don't quite kill us this turn, but they basically win the game if they do that. So this should come in at the Liliana, because otherwise the Liliana will kill it next time with a minus. Yep. That's bought us a little bit of life and time. We've got Sheoldred's Edicts in our deck. We have a Null Spellbomb. That one isn't ideal for various reasons. So I think we take the 4 and then we have to pump this just to try and gain the extra card that we need to deal with the Murktide. It's pretty gross. Like, we could just take another one, but we have to assume our opponent has Lightning Bolts in their deck, so I think we are just pumping their Murktide as much as I hate it. Him to Tourach. Yeah, your Murktide gets lethal. It was going to put us to 1 against their Lightning Bolt deck. I don't think it makes much of a difference. Nether Spirit. I would like to see the cards in your hand, please, before you kill us. Have you got anything interesting over there? No. And then they kill us with the Murktide. That game was really close. So if we keep the Smallpox instead of the Rack, we don't die there. But how do we actually win that game is the question. Because we have 1 Rack, 1 Nether Spirit as our only win conditions. I guess we have the... What am I talking about? We've got the Hatchery and the Sagas. Yeah, I think we just biffed that one a little bit. We should have just kept the Smallpox. Although, us at 1 mana top decking versus our opponent at 1 mana top decking, I still favour our opponent. I think we went for the high roll there to try and end the game and just find a removal spell. But yeah, I don't think we could have done that one differently and it would have turned out better for us. Alright, let's resubmit. I think this is fine. We have lots of 2-drops that our opponent is going to be impacted by, one way or the other. And then we have a good target to Smallpox away. We have a nice payoff at the end of the chain if we get there. Our Hymn to Tourach might give our opponent Delirium, but I'm okay with that if we strip their hand apart. Alright, Hymn, show me what goodies our opponent has. Our opponent could daze this, which does set them back to the Smallpox. Smallpox will strip all of their permanents when we get it down. There is the daze, sure. I think offering up the Hymn to the daze makes more sense than offering up the Smallpox. We also get to Smallpox around a daze, which is sometimes quite useful. And we have a perfect thing to discard. Yep, we take 3. Our opponent's got 6 cards over there. Preordain. Alright, it's over to us. How do you like Smallpoxes? I'm not going to sack the Hatchery here. Discard Nether Spirit. I would like the next Smallpox to sacrifice the Hatchery and we get some more counters on it. Okay. Good chunk of resources from our opponent there. They discarded a Steam Vents, which suggests they have another land. Doesn't look like they have another threat, though. They didn't have a daze last turn. So I'm going to assume they don't have a daze this turn. Is that safe as an assumption? I think so. Now, this card isn't that good yet, but it could be devastating later on. Alright. We're just in with that. So now we don't really care about Smallpox, the downside of Smallpox at all. You got a Murktide over there? A Corrie Steel Cutter. Not deploying any friends to go alongside it though. I would like to Thoughtseize my opponent, please. What are you working with? Murktide Regent, Meltdown, Force of Will. I don't really care about a lot of these things, to be honest. I guess we just take the Murktide. I'll play my little Swamp out. I'll start bashing in for a little bit of damage. So Murktide is also their blue card for Force of Will. Start cranking in with the damage. So they can play Meltdown just as a 1-mana spell to try and trigger the Corrie Steelcutter. Then that just gives us a nice turn of Smallpox in them. There is a Wasteland. You got it, opponent. I'm going to pay a life and keep this ticking. Let's go to attacks. Just taking 2. I'll play out a land. I don't think I need to Smallpox yet. So the one reason we might want to Smallpox there is so that we can get the hatchery back if they just melt down where X is. But if they do that, they lose their Steel Cutter, and I'm very happy with that exchange. You got it, boss. And then Urza's Bauble. They did this the wrong way around. If they play the Bauble out first, they get a token off of casting the Meltdown. And they at least have something in play to show for it. I'll happily point of pain to grow that. Let's have a Basilisk Collar. First showing of the Basilisk Collar today. Like, is this worth your Force of Will? Doesn't feel like it is. Force negation, pitching Force of Will. Okay. If that's what you think this game is about. I'll leave this land in hand so we have something that we can pitch for Smallpox in case we draw something we actually want. But we're just going to hold the Smallpox when our opponent plays a creature. And then they're going to have a bad time because they're not going to have a creature anymore. Oh, hello, creature. Alright, let's do that. This is going to block all the time. But I guess we at least make them do it. And then here comes the Smallpox. Sacrifice the hatchery. We get 6 power into play. That is a 2-turn clock. And our opponent is living off the top. We'll leave this in hand. Keep our opponent guessing. Alright. We win the game. And that is the match. We are 3-0. And we are playing against some good decks today as well. You know, Blue-Black Reanimator, Blue-Red Delver. That's like 2 of the top decks. Maybe there's something in this build. Let's go to round number 4. Sure. I guess we ride Liliana all the way to the bank. A Lush Portico. Okay. This is possibly Green-White Depths? Feels like Green-White Depths. Hymn to Tourach, you say. Let us Dark Ritual. So now we're in the age-old conundrum. Do you Hymn to Tourach first and then Thoughtseize and take the best card? Or do you take the best card and then Hymn to Tourach? I think we're going to Hymn first because I don't think there's counter magic over there. And then we're going to try and take the best thing of what's left. Ooh, a Force. Unexpected. So this might be Nardu. Green Sun Zenith, Nardu, Ponder. Not in love with many of these things. I'm going to take the Green Sun Zenith because they can't cast it. Sorry, they can't cast the other cards in their hand. So next turn we can go Liliana and the Rack. And hopefully have something worthwhile to discard here. They drew a Nomads because of course they did. We did draw something good to discard. We're not actually going to be discarding this turn. I think this is Dark Ritual. Play Liliana. Minus, in case they draw the blue source next turn. That's just an unfortunate thing we have to do. And then we play the Rack. And then next turn we can start ticking the Liliana up. And just putting our opponent through the Rack. Play land out. It's better to actually cast this than it is to discard it with Liliana because it means it gets to attack next turn. What have you got over there, opponent? The Ponder that you couldn't cast. That makes sense. And now we have the Rack biting our opponent. The Nardu is killable via this Liliana. It's a swamp. We'll keep plussing the Liliana. Another Ponder they couldn't cast. Beautiful stuff. Delighted Halfling. I'm not delighted about that. Eat it, opponent. Absolutely eat it. I'll teach you for playing Nardu. Right, you can sacrifice a creature. And you can lose your hand as well, for good measure. Get racked. Absolutely in the bin. Where Nardu belongs. No offense to your opponent. I'm sure you're a lovely person. But I've had enough of this Nardu creature. Alright, we'll play out another Wink Edition. Plus this. We'll bash. So we're going to put our opponent to 7. Then they're going to go to 4. I think the Rack is just going to absolutely slaughter our opponent here. It will be dealing the final blow of this game. Alright, we got there. Okay. So this looks like a Nardu Zenithy mid-rangey style build. So in with a boatload of removal, out with a couple of Racks. I don't think this is a Zuran Orb matchup. The Bottomless Pit feels kind of good here, but resolving it is not always the easiest thing in the world. We'll take out a Dark Ritual. Maybe we'll take out 2 Dark Rituals. We'll leave both pits in. Just really jam our opponent up. Although the pit is less good if we're not ritualing it out as well. No, I'm okay with the pit. It doesn't feel like our build needs Dark Rituals that often. It's just a nice thing to have sometimes. Oh, deck. Why are you going to do this to me? I guess we didn't need the Nihil Spellbombs as much as I thought. So if we draw a Black Sorcerer 2 draw steps, we're odds on to hit it in 2 draw steps, more or less. And this hand absolutely pops off in that case. Alright, I'm going to believe in the heart of the cards. We've been having a pretty good run today, so let's just lean into it, shall we? Flooded Strand. You got it, boss. A Eumidian Hatchery. I like that very much. I'm going to play a Wasteland, though. And I'm going to force my opponent to play on basics. There is one of the basics. There is that annoying creature. I guess I kind of want to draw an Urborg now. But we have a Smallpox. I will deploy the Hatchery and make a Spellbomb. I think we could probably boil out the Spellbombs and keep the Rituals in. Makes a little bit more sense here. So can get a Nadu into play, which is unpleasant for us. Look at all those basics. Just a very rude thing to do to me. Oh, it's a Ferry. That's fine. Are you going to just draw a card? Get the Spellbomb out? I don't care about it. They chose no targets. Understood. 5 cards in our opponent's hand. I would like to point him to Tourach at your dome, please. Yep, they have all the basics. We've been punished for starting off on this Wasteland. Flusterstorm. We can't pay for that one. But it's a card out of our opponent's hand. Are they just going to play a Nadu and Nomads this turn? If so, then sure, I'll just eat dirt and go to game 3. There goes one of the worst design Magic cards I've ever seen. And there is a Nomads. We're not going to sit through this. Our opponent has it. Okay. We want the Toxic Deluge in this matchup as well. I forgot about those. Apologies. So let's get rid of these Nihil Spellbombs for the Toxic Deluge. Do I want more Dark Rituals? Maybe we'll have a Dark Ritual. So we've got 3 Rituals and then 5 3-drops. Well, actually, we got more 3-drops because of the Deluge. So having the more Rituals, it makes sense there. Okay. I like our chances in this matchup, just generally, though. Sure, I'll keep this one. I'm not going to play out the Basilisk Collar. On one, I'm just going to hold up the Fatal Push for the Nomads or the little Halfling, if that's what they play on turn 1. Yes, we do have this Sweeper, but I think we just need to keep the board under wraps, because our opponent going up on mana is a bit of an issue for us when we're trying to curtail the amount of resources they have. Now, this hand obviously doesn't go anywhere just yet, but our deck's not really about winning the game. Go on, play your little creature. So no days is available here. It would have to be a force to save this. So let's get rid of it. Step 1. Step 2, him to Tourach your face. Endurance and a Force of Negation. Okay. So they might have had the ability to Force of Negation that and choose what they effectively discarded, but they decided not to do that, which is interesting. And Nomads. Have you got anything else? No, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, I'm down to Thoughtseize here. Just keep the hits coming. Get Lost is creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Prismatic Ending. I don't really like the Safekeeper because I can actually cast it and do things. I don't really care about the Basilisk Collar dying very much. Although if they play the Safekeeper, we can sweep them both up. But that requires us to find another mana. Interesting. What do maps do? Target creature explores. Great. What does explore do? I didn't remember. Cool. At least we get stuff off of that. So maybe it's the ending that goes here. We just try and sweep up both their guys. I don't think our opponent's going to want to sacrifice lands to keep their creatures alive. So you can put the Safekeeper in. There it is. We attack for 1. If we draw a land, then we just take both of these out. Another Thoughtseize. Yeah, I'm down to clown with another one of these. Scythecat Cub. That does some things if they draw a land here. Are we banking on us drawing a land? Because we do need to draw one at some point, don't we? Take it to Fairy, though. Like, we should be drawing a land pretty soon. We kept a 2-lander. So we're odds on to draw a land, then we just Toxic Deluge and kill all of their guys. There's a land, here's a cub. Now, if we just don't draw a land for the rest of this game, we were always going to lose it anyway, and it doesn't matter. Not a land, though. Interesting. Not exactly how I wanted this to go. Maybe we're just getting slightly too greedy there. Where are you putting the counter? On the Scythecat Cub. I am willing to Fatal Push the Scythecat Cub now. Are you going to sacrifice a land? They are. Sure. We're going to take more damage than I would like this turn. But this stops them putting the counter on because it's Shroud, not hexproof. A Wasteland, sure. Kill all your board, please. Map tokens cost mana to activate. So if Explore puts a land into play, which sounds like it might do, then they won't be able to get anything going here. So this will just kill all their guys. Right, they're destroying their own thing to get map tokens. Does it tell what Explore does? It doesn't tell what Explore does. Like, I think it's something to do with, like, you get some lands. Like, you look at top card, if it's a land, it goes somewhere and you get something. Or maybe it gets +1 counters. I honestly don't know the exact text of Explore. I wasn't really playing much during the Ixalan stuff. I kind of dipped out of Standard after Khans of Tarkir and then played a little bit around the pandemic with, like, Ikoria. So this stuff is not a clue to me. Alright, the Windswept Heath. That makes our Wasteland a little bit less exciting. If we draw a land, though, we can play a Nether Spirit and then we can waste them in their upkeep so they can't get a Surveil land without us knowing what Surveil land they get. So they would have to get probably Hedge Maze, because then we can't waste them off of a colour if they really want to get that. Because, like, they're already exposed to Wasteland, so they should just lean into it. Alright. This needs a target. Okay, so they're getting a Dryad Arbor. Okay, we get to find out what Explore does now. Maybe. So they revealed a Flooded Strand. Is that Flooded Strand in their hand now? I think it is. Okay, so I think we've worked out what Explore does. You get the land into your hand, or you get a +1 counter, because it's got a counter from the Force of Will. Okay. I kind of want to play the Rack. So we know there's a Force of Will on top of their library, and they have a Flooded Strand in hand. So if we deploy the Rack here, and then we take out this creature. Oh wait, they put the Force of Will in the graveyard, right? They choose where if it goes in the graveyard or not. Okay. We have a win condition. That's something. The Flooded Strand we knew about. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Yeah, that's pretty spooky. Okay, Urza Saga is obviously an absolute all-time banger there. Let's make a friend. Am I wastelanding so our opponent can't play something like a Nadu? I think we have to. We don't have to do it now. We do it in our opponent's upkeep is when we wasteland. Because that way if they get a Surveil land, we can decide what we're doing. I think it's more important to keep our opponent off of green-green, because they do have cards that are green-green, like the Endurance. So I think this comes after the Hedge Maze. I think we want to take them off of blue rather than white. So if I get a second Wasteland, if we hit this and hit this, then we're going to feel pretty good. If we hit green and this, yeah, I think we hit the Hedge Maze. They left the card on top. Alright, they're just churning with the Soul Cauldron. But we've got a pretty solid clock. Our opponent's going to have to string something together relatively quickly. And we do have a Nihil Spellbomb. No, we brought out the Spellbombs. So we didn't see the Cauldron. Alright, they're getting a 1-drop. So is it going to be a Delighted Halfling? Makes sense. I'm not going to equip the Basilisk Collar. I'm just going to attack. Sure. So they can equip it. They can put it on here. But this comes back every turn anyway. Sure. This is going to put a counter on this, and we're going to lose our Nether Spirits. I guess they can then take it with the Agatha's Soul Cauldron, but then they're not putting other counters on it. I don't know. Maybe that was just a loose attack, actually. Okay, I'm going to play this Saga out, so I've got more mana. Yeah, I don't think we either shouldn't have attacked or we should have put the collar on it. My bad, actually. Yeah, that could end up being quite crucial here. So we need Lad and Nadu. Yep, goodbye, Nether Spirit. This is going to give our opponent a bigger creature. But they can't. Can they afford to attack here? They have a 2-turn clock, if they do. Right, we're going to make a construct. A Pithing Needle is kind of one of the things I wanted to tutor up, if I'm being honest. No more targets. That is awkward. So I will play this Pithing Needle because it makes my guy larger. Agatha's Soul Cauldron, please. And we'll attack with a 5/5. If they take this, then the Rack kills them in 2 turns. Alright, looks like they might be gambling on trying to get through the Rack. Yeah, we should have just not attacked with our Nether Traitor before, Nether Spirit. Although they might have put the Nomads underneath it, and that could be awkward for us if they rip well. We have 2 lethal threats here, and then the Rack burns them down if they spend... The Rack is lethal if they use both the cards in their hand. Misty Rainforest, okay. Have they drawn a Nadu? Probably. They always have the Nadu with it. Okay, a Lush Portico. That's not a Nadu. But maybe they can surveil something useful into the graveyard. I don't think they're running Walking Ballista, but you never know. I think I'm just going to make another friend here. Got no targets left. Let's go attack with both of them. Because they cracked a fetch land, they're just dead. Alright. Made a little misstep here and there, but we are 4-0, going 2-1 in every game so far. So we're playing a trophy match with this Pit Rack deck. That's incredible. Let's go and see if we can get a trophy. Him to Tourach, Liliana. Okay, so if they have some early pressure, we can hopefully cap it off with a Liliana on turn 3. But otherwise, we're just going to shred our opponent's hand entirely. Mulliganing. Hopefully they're not going to be like a turn 0 combo deck and just body us. Oh no, mulligan to 5. They're probably like an Echo deck, which our hand isn't great against. We need to get to turn 2 and then we're okay. But depending on how much stuff they play out and how much they leave in hand, the hymns might not do enough. If they just like play out Wishclaw talismans and things, ready to untap with the mana they have, then they'll get us. But, you know, we've made our bed, so here we are. We do have some tools for combo decks if they're using artifacts, though. 4 Null Rods is a lot. I wish one of these swamps was a Thoughtseize, then this hand would have been perfect. Don't do it to your opponent. Urza's Tower. Okay. Him to Tourach should be pretty good here. 2 cards, please. A Grim Monolith and a Portable Hole. That Grim Monolith might have been a really key part of our opponent having enough mana, but they could still potentially just go Plane of Nexus, the One Ring here, and then... Are you kidding me, opponent? Don't do it. That's so rude. That's so rude. Okay. I don't think Liliana keeps up with a One Ring very easily. The Rack. What a joke. Okay. This still works because each player discards a card, so we have that going for us at least. But I guess like between the Rack and the One Ring, they either have to take an extra point of pain to get cards to go above the Rack, or the Rack can hurt them if we can get their hand low enough. We are floundering already here because there are what I consider 2 design mistakes on the other side of the table. I think Plane of Nexus and the One Ring were both design mistakes. This one being the more egregious of the 2. But I think when you put this many words on a land, you're going to mess some stuff up. Alright, what are you getting with your little Karn? Is it a Pithing Needle for my poor little Liliana? How are we beating this Karn? Disruptor Flute. Yep, that's just Pithing Needle plus, isn't it? Comes down. And then next turn they can Lattice Lock us. And then that is the game. Disgusting. Why couldn't you have hit better cards, him? I didn't hit either of the things that would break this up. Yikes. Now, we don't know what our opponent drew. It's certainly possible. This doesn't say Planeswalkers one of the types. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So, I guess we him our opponent. And then, if we make them sacrifice a land here, how good is that? They probably just lose this. They have 4 mana, but they still have the One Ring going. I don't think we can win this one pre-board. Like, if we stopped our opponent assembling turn 2 One Ring, then sure. Okay, so we're going to take an extra point from their One Ring instead of the damage from our Rack. Okay, so they should just Lattice Lock us and that should be the game. We could have bought 1 turn using the Smallpox. Playing out a Grim Monolith, I'm ready to concede. Show me the Lattice, please. Or, I'd rather you didn't, but... Glowing Fleshraker first. Okay, they're just playing a whole bunch of stuff. So they're going to play a Fleshraker out and do a bunch of nonsense, and then they're going to kill us with the Lattice. Like, I guess it is correct just to maximize what you're doing. It's just a bit miserable for us to have to watch our opponent just tee off. So we're not dead to the Lattice because the Rack can kill our opponents. But at some point they're just going to animate things and turn them sideways and we die. Okay, Mystic Forge, not my best friend. So I would like 4 Null Rods, please. And that's pretty much all we're doing. We don't need Zuran Orb. We don't need Nihil Spellbombs. I like the Bottomless Pit. I like the Crucible. I like all these things. Do we need a Basilisk Collar? Sheoldred's Edict hitting Planeswalkers. Actually, we want more of that effect because of Karn. Okay, so now we need to think. This is the matchup where we do want the Dark Rituals because we need to come out pretty hot. I don't think we need the Basilisk Collar. We do need a win condition. Hymns are good. Smallpox is good. I guess we're shaving a Rack. And then... it's probably the Pit. Actually, the Pit might be better than the Liliana in this matchup. Let's do that. We want to be able to get our Null Rod and stuff down super early doors. Double Wasteland is really good into our opponent's deck. I think we have to keep this one. Just keep our opponent's lands down for a few turns and then drain them out with the Bottomless Pit. I have a feeling that we might not be crossing the finish line. This is the sort of matchup that is really tough for us unless we can super get the hooks in. Are they going to play anything off of this as a Saga? Lotus Petal. We're going to be punished for not playing out the turn on Wasteland. I hope not. Because we could have hit this before it could learn to make mana. You're really just going to play like a turn 1 Flesh Rake. Alright, let's get in at their mana here. And we can Wasteland again next turn. And then start deploying lands. Hopefully we'll draw something like a Hymn or a Thoughtseize along the way. So we can actually do something before we get to 3 mana on the Bottomless Pit. If our opponent had a Flesh Raker, they probably would have played it last turn. Or at least held back these petals. So I don't think that's what our opponent's on. Alright, I will play this Wasteland. I will waste you. I will Dark Ritual out. I will play a Bottomless Pit. Enjoy, opponent. Our Ugin Storms. That's not the one we want to hit. That's probably not very castable right now. Grim Monolith. Sure. You can play the One Ring. Tezzeret. So this can untap the Grim Monolith and give them more mana. But we at least have an answer for the Tezzeret. Unless we discard it to Bottomless Pit. Okay, so now we also have a Flesh Rake we need to answer, as well as the Tezzeret. We're going to discard the... We didn't discard the thing. That's a miracle. This tutors for 1-drops. This kills us and does scary things. I think they will sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice, please. Alright, Bottomless Pit. Take the last card. It's an Ancient Tomb. Now, our opponent's got plenty of mana to work with. So we could have hit the Tezzeret. Alright, they didn't find anything. What are we going to discard here? Thoughtseize? No. Sheoldred's Edict. Beautiful. Okay, you can sacrifice a Planeswalker, please. Now we need to find... like Urza Saga or something. But we basically just scoop if they find the One Ring before we find... Okay, we probably scoop to the Khan as well. This gives them Lattice next turn. What are they putting in their hand? It's going to get discarded, so... It has to be something they play right now. So they have a Mystic Forge here. That'd be really, really strong. It is a Mystic Forge. Yep. It's pretty good. Overwhelming card advantage in our opponent's deck is very hard to beat with something that's trying to stop your opponent having cards. Maybe we're supposed to mull to like Null Rods, but you know, they're still going to have Mystic Forge doing its thing. Their lands are still going to tap for a bazillion. Right, we're going to discard this Thoughtseize, that's fine. Found a land. Alright, I think we have come to the end of what was a very good run today. Just one design mistake too many. We beat the Nadi, couldn't beat the Ring, and there is a Lattice. We are locked. Our opponent just turns this into a 6/6 and beats us down. So we got crushed by the deck that has one of the most broken card advantage engines ever printed in the One Ring. Fair enough. But a 4-1 with a POX deck is really good. And especially since we're doing a spicy thing, this was a massive win all the way around. So let's talk about the deck. So lots of things in this deck actually came together to work nicely. So Hymn to Tourach, it's not exactly a mystery that this card is a banger, but you see a lot of POX decks that don't run it. And I don't understand why. This card is just so backbreaking so much of the time. And it's definitely well worth having in your deck. The Liliana was pretty reasonable today. The Bottomless Pit was okay. This was probably the weakest looking card in our deck, to be honest. We did board it out a few times as well. Because at least when Liliana's plussing, you're banking Edict effects. Whereas this, it gets the game down to like nothing going on. And then what? You could run something like... Delirium Schemes. Let me pull it up for you. So this is 3 mana. Each player discards 3 cards. So this is basically going to do the same thing as Bottomless Pit most of the time. It's going to happen all at once though. So playing a Bottomless Pit out on turn 1 is going to be slightly different to just playing a Delirium Schemes, but you can run something like this. This is something I've toyed with, playing more stuff that you're okay to discard. But this is just, okay, resources gone. If you think about the amount of resources this is stripping for just 3 mana, it's pretty gross. So that's something you could think about instead of the Bottomless Pit, if you just want to just erase everything. So that if we'd have played this, against our Khan opponent, we could have just like wiped the game and not let them have anything. So maybe that would have been better. The Rack actually did things and was a real win condition. I think 3 is too many, but I think 2 is actually a pretty reasonable number. I could also see the argument for 1. Zuran Orb we didn't really use, but the idea of getting it to sack your hatchery is pretty nice, and sometimes you get extra value off of your Urza Saga. It just never really came up, although I do have a screenshot somewhere of our opponent scooping once we put Zuran Orb on the stack, which is hilarious. So Zuran Orb was fine, but I don't necessarily think you need it. The Basilisk Collar, again, this could be anything, but I think making your Nether Spirit and tokens have Death Touch is really, really key. And getting big lifelink swings in with your Urza Saga is pretty good too. The only time that's going to really be a problem is if you're going to miss the trample. And missing the trample can be a little bit awkward if your opponent's got lots of stuff to keep you at bay. But if your opponent's got lots of stuff, then your deck's not really functioning anyway, right? So I don't necessarily think we need Shadow Spare when we could have a Collar, which just gives us more ways of interacting and trading with our opponent, which is what our deck really wants to do. If you're cutting like a Zuran Orb and a Rack, you could add in like a Lava Spur Boot just to give you more speed against combo decks if you're doing the Saga plan, which makes some sense to me. I really like the sideboard today. I think having a bunch of removal like this made a huge difference. Just saying, okay, we're just going to have 7 removal spells in if you've got a bunch of creatures, and that was pretty tasty. So, big thumbs up for this deck, actually. It felt pretty good. Now, we did occasionally run hot. We got some situations where we wastelanded our opponent off of a land when they were trying to keep a one-lander. That did happen, and, you know, people do keep those hands, but we identified that it was our best way to play through, and we hit the upside. And that was obviously very, very helpful for us and did certainly win at least one of the games for us. But nevertheless, this deck felt very competitive and very real. I think if you wanted to, you could even run more Pithing Needles. Because our deck is so poor against some of the things that you can needle, like the One Ring or Planeswalkers in general, I could certainly see having more Pithing Needles as an option. I play Turbo Depths. I run 4 main deck Pithing Needles. If you have something that's really good against you, like Wastelands when you Turbo Depths, then you want something that stops it. So if you have got something that's really, really good against you, like the One Ring and Planeswalkers, maybe have more stuff to stop it. That's just something to think about. Nether Spirit was cute. It did beat down a whole bunch, but this could have been anything. But the fact that this was something that was beating down was relevant and did give us the pressure we needed. So if you want to cut this, you need to put in different pressure. Like, you can play Bloodghasts or whatever, but just having one Nether Spirit just feels quintessential POX goodness. And the fact that you've got the Hatcheries, the Saga, and the Rack is quite a lot of win conditions embedded in the list. Alright, I think we are done for today. I really enjoy this one, as I hope you can tell. This is exactly my sort of magic, just really grind people into the dirt. And I hope you enjoyed watching many people become one with the dirt. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And for $1 a month, you can see my videos early and support the channel. So please do that if you're in a position where you can. I've also got Patreon and stuff, but you know the drill. Goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbo Depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbo Depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.